Welcome to Big Iron with Max Prasac. I've always been intrigued with harnessing power, just being able to tame something that is seemingly untamable. For me, the essence of handgun hunting is getting close, getting in that uncomfortable personal space. It's visceral and life-altering. Every breath and every move matters. An activity and lifestyle that is difficult to master, and while not for everyone, is rewarding for the individual willing to accept the challenge. Welcome to Big Iron.
We're in Delaware for opening day of shotgun season on deer. Before you get confused about that, in Delaware you can substitute shotgun for a handgun, so it's legal for us to hunt with handguns. So we're here to hopefully take a nice buck and perhaps a doe for the freezer. Our host for this hunt is a good friend of mine, Bud Rummel. He's been a guide in Alaska. He's guided all over the United States, but he was a PH in Africa, in Zimbabwe to be exact. He's got a lot of hunting experience. He's got a lot of dangerous game hunting experience, but most importantly, he's a handgun hunter. He's managing this property out here for whitetail hunting, and he's done a fantastic job. He knows the population of deer here. He keeps the shooting lanes clean. He's got this whole property dialed in for a good, successful hunt.
We have 330 acres there that I manage. I've had it in a deer management program for 7 years now. And there's probably about 40 acres of it timbered that kind of divides the marshland from the tilled land, which is just a perfect setting because they like to bed in the marsh and they feel very secluded and very safe traveling to the tillable land where they feed. The goal is to get you as big a buck as we can get in the time that we have. The rut's going on, so I think we have a good opportunity. Couldn't hit the rut better. When I first took over the farm, there was lots of what most people would call a trophy 8-point, but we've pretty much called as much as that out, so we have a lot of good 10 and 12s running on the farm now, so I feel very optimistic about succeeding for you.
It was about 4:30 when we got onto the property, trying to get into our stands well before light because we have a camera crew and we want to get settled in before deer start moving and we mess up the hunt with all of our movement and the noise that we're making.
I got a 2-man ladder stand that your back is against the marsh and the front is the timber. They funnel through there to the main bedding area on the whole property. And there's been a lot of good bucks shot out of there.
I don't normally hunt with so much hearing protection, but I'm using a 454 Gazoo that's really loud. Got a Ruger Super Red Hawk with an Ultra Dot 30 mounted with Ruger 30mm rings. I'm shooting a Federal 300 grain Swift A-frame load. 7.5 inch barrel. It's all stainless steel. This is one of the best hunting revolvers available, in my humble opinion, because you can set it up with an optic and still keep the iron sights on here. It's not many revolvers like that. So I take this off, my irons are still ready to go. It's a great revolver. That's basically it. We're just waiting for light to come up a little bit and waiting for deer to start moving.
You'll have your back to the east, so when the sun comes up, it's behind you when you're sitting there, and the tree it's in is big enough it breaks your silhouette, so you know you're not silhouetted by the east rising sun in the morning.
Just using this rangefinder to get some idea what some of the distances are around here.
You'll have anywhere from 10-yard shots to about 75 yards in front of you in the timber, and just to the right of the timber part is a holly thicket that they just rut and tear up as you wouldn't believe, and it looks like a tractor and a plow's gone through there recently. And then behind you, you got the marsh, and where a lot of the bucks bed right down in the grass in the marsh, and so you could shoot as far as you're capable in the back. I mean, there's 300-400 yard shots there.
This is kind of a typical eastern There's a lot of, I don't want to say it's animosity between the East and the West as far as how they hunt. Westerners, by necessity, have wide open spaces. They hunt differently. They do a lot of stalking, which is fun. It's really fun hunting. It's good, real hardcore hunting. However, East, terrain's different. It's too thick. You're going to be crunching on leaves and branches, breaking them. You're never going to get close to a weary animal like a whitetail. So it's a different style of hunting, but it's a different style that has its place. And you just have to be patient. You have to be quiet, and you know, it can pay off. Take it or leave it. Someone got something, hopefully. It wasn't us.
When we return, Bud did indeed kill a nice buck, but he's about to discover that was the easy part. Stay with us. Big Iron is brought to you by Magnum Research, makers of the BFR, the biggest, finest revolver, and Buffalo Bore ammunition. Strictly business. Welcome back to Big Iron. We're still in the same tree stand, waiting on conditions to improve. There are some things you can control, or at the very least plan for. But the wind is always a roll of the dice. The wind still isn't cooperating, but we continue to lean on hope.
I don't know what's going to happen here. The wind is conspiring against us. It's coming from our back and right to left, but from our back. So we're counting on this to be our kind of our deer avenue here, and it's pushing our scent right down that path, basically. So we'll see what happens.
Well, the wind won, but it can't stop us from recovering Bud's buck from this morning. Lucky me. Maybe the guide, who shot a buck, will put us somewhere where there are actual deer. Or maybe not. I think it was pretty deliberate. He picked the perfect spot for himself and put us in the one that wasn't going to, deliver anything. I might have to word with him.
Tracy and Rusty, I swear I got fish swimming around in my boot.
You might.
Apparently it's closer to the water than it is to a land mass, and so it's going to be easier to pick it up with a boat. So we went and got a boat, and now we're going to go pick up a deer.
The farm has got about 2.5 miles of water frontage, and if you want to hunt the edge of the marsh, the best way to retrieve a deer is by boat. It's just impossible. There's no way, any place, anywhere on the farm, you can get an ATV to the marsh. I went out on the farthest point of the marsh, which in the dark, it was just, I would have liked to have sent Max there, but it's just too dangerous not knowing the terrain, because like I was walking along and all of a sudden I fell in a hole up over my knee full of water and sat in the blind with a boot full of water all morning. When I shot the deer, it ran about 15 yards into the thicket, and it was all I could do to drag it out. It took probably a half hour to drag it out that 15 yards. It's kind of a neat way to hunt though, it's just the only easy way of doing it. Unusual, but that's the way you got to do it in this part of the world. And the marsh is so swampy, you walk, and both Max and I fell in the hole, and it's just so thick.
The guide can hunt.
Max and I drug it out, stuck it on the boat, and came back down the river.
There we go.
Nice work, bud.
Thank you.
Really nice.
I use the 460 Smith Performance Center gun. I've been an avid handgun hunter since the 60s, and I have a little bit of everything. Because of the range that my shots present, I chose the 460. It's got a 2 to 7 burst scope on it, and I use 200 grain Hornady FTX bullets, and my gun likes it. It shoots under an inch at 100 yards with it, and it's served me well.
For the evening hunt, we got into a box blind, which is nice because it kind of shelters you a little bit from the elements. It has a roof over its head, which is beautiful when it starts raining. We got into the stand over a bean field, which is great. A lot of animals come in typically to this particular spot. A few years ago, I took a cull buck off of that particular spot. Towards the end of shooting light, it started to rain. And it started to rain hard, and it rained harder even still. Rain makes you miserable because then you add the cold to it, and then you're talking about a really, really happy hunter. It messes up your visibility. Although I've seen rain make animals move when it's cool and it's raining because no one's harassing them, so they tend to move a lot. So, I mean, your chances are pretty decent when it rains, but it hurts visibility, particularly if it's getting dark.
Biggest challenge is going to get them to stop with the rut going on. Bucks just don't stop when there's a doe in front of them.
There were a lot of does out there, but we held out, we held out, we held out. There it comes. It's too far away though. Towards the last of the shooting light, here comes a buck. And it was easily identified at 100 yards as a buck with a really good rack. And when you can see it from that distance, you know you're onto something pretty damn good.
Shot placement here is important because if you don't have perfect shot placement and anchor that deer right away, if he makes it through the timber and into the marsh, you'll never find him. You just cannot find him in the marsh. It's just next to impossible.
It was raining pretty hard. Visibility was pretty poor at that point just because of the rain and the receding light. So hard to see. But, you know, nothing ventured, nothing gained. So I set up with my 454, and he got about to the middle of the field and stopped. Big mistake. I let 300 grains of swift A-frame fly. I heard the thwack. I watched it jump up and take off because they run.
I think I hit him good.
It's upsetting that they run sometimes, but you know, so oftentimes they run into the brush and you find them shortly thereafter. But that's how the evening hunt ended. So we waited around a little bit, and then we finally climbed down, and it was really raining hard by the time we got out of that stand.
Between the rain and the darkness, it would have been an impossible task to find the animal. So after an abbreviated rain-soaked search, we made a plan for an early morning hunt. We would then search for the deer in the full sunlight afterwards. Stay with us. Big Iron is brought to you by Magnum Research, makers of the BFR, the biggest, finest revolver, and Buffalo Bore ammunition. Strictly business. After hitting that buck in the last light and the pouring rain, we decided to wait until the sun was shining in the morning to resume the tracking. Until then, Bud has us in another supposedly target-rich tree stand, awaiting the day ahead.
It's another glorious morning in a stand. This morning's a little bit better as far as the weather's concerned. As you can tell, there's still a wind, but it's hitting us in the face this time around and not coming from behind us, which will hopefully not scare any deer off. Cold this morning, but not really cold, and it looks to me like it might be the start of a good hunting day. We just have to be patient and quiet.
Hunting from a tree stand seems like an activity devoid of skill. Luck plays a role in all hunting, but when you're in a fixed position that you can't change, luck takes on a much more significant and meaningful role. What you need to practice while stand hunting is noise and movement discipline. You can't do anything about the wind, so you're stuck with that. But deer pick up on movement better than most animals I've hunted, as you are well aware. So you must be very careful not to make any sudden moves. The same thing applies to noise. You absolutely must be very quiet, not to draw attention to your presence. The upside to a morning on a stand is witnessing the forest waking up and coming to life. It's something to behold, before you shatter that silence with gunfire.
Well, we've been out here for a couple hours and we haven't really seen anything. We saw one doe way off in the distance behind a bunch of trees and brush, so there wasn't even a viable shot there. We saw a fox. Oh, there's a doe right there, right there, right there. Don't move. She's tiny, but she doesn't know we're here. There we go. And if she was tiny, we wouldn't have touched her. Try again this late afternoon.
When the brush is as thick as this, tracking can be a daunting task to say the least. Add in a torrential downpour, and all blood sign disappears into the Delaware soil. This is when an experienced tracker, coupled with a dog, partnered up with Lady Luck, is your best chance for success. If we only had a tracking dog, we might even succeed in finding our buck.
I have had many a conversation on internet websites and with hunters in person about the topic of losing animals. If you hunt enough, it happens. It's never fun. It's never something you want. It's not necessarily a reflection on poor marksmanship or poor judgment. As I've said before, every animal is a law unto itself. Some run, some die. Some decide to give up the ghost immediately. Some are really stubborn about it, and the message doesn't get sent to the brain that the animal's actually dead, and they run. And they go into the thickest terrain there is. They go into the hardest to reach area for you to, have a hard time to get them. It's kind of it's karma, I guess. Something that you shouldn't beat yourself up over if it does happen to you, because at some point, if you do it enough, you're going to lose an animal. And if you're human, it's going to bother you. But get back on that horse and practice. If you're a hunter and you hunt whitetail once a year and that's your only hunt, get out there well before the season opener and practice. Knock the dust off of your rifle or handgun or your bow, whatever you're using, practice. You owe it to the animal, and then you don't have to, feel bad about losing an animal if it is indeed a poorly placed shot. It just, lessen the chances. Practice.
When we return, we go out one last time as we try to beat the sun. Stay with us.
The evening blind that I'm putting them in is my blind that I usually sit in. It overlooks a 600-acre tillable plot, so you could shoot as far as you want, but majority of the deer come out under 125 yards.
We're giving Delaware one last go before we have to wrap up and head home. Will the hunting gods smile down upon us this afternoon? We're about to find out. But we will have to be patient and see. After all, it's hunting, and there are no guarantees.
I'm confident that the animal that I shot is actually deceased and it didn't suffer, and it's actually probably 10 feet beyond where we stopped looking, taunting me. No matter how well prepared you are, these animals sometimes just don't cooperate, and it just happens.
So there you have it, the somewhat typical eastern U.S. whitetail stand hunt. We've met with mixed results this time around, but that's what Big Iron has to offer, an unabashedly honest look at the hit-or-miss world of hunting. We hope we don't offend with real live handgun hunts, warts and all.
We had a great weekend, but we struck out. It happens. Any time spent out in the woods with a firearm is time well spent, as far as I'm concerned. You may feel differently, but I think if you're watching this show, you probably feel the same way I do. But it was fantastic, and I'm looking forward to next season. Hopefully we'll get another invite to come on up here.
Until next time. And remember, it's just like bow hunting, but louder.